said that they are not going to entertain Republican inquiries about breaking the bill up into smaller pieces. But some Republicans don't even see the need for a bill like this because they did just pass $900 billion in COVID relief. Ohio Senator Rob Portman saying it was only several weeks ago we passed a $900 billion package for COVID relief on a bipartisan basis. It is yet to be implemented. Most has not gone out the door. I mean, literally, the money has not gone out the door. So I'm not sure I understand why there is a grave emergency right now. Why is there a grave emergency?
Well, you know, the famous line that Rahm Emanuel had during the Obama administration, an emergency is a terrible thing to waste. Obviously, there is an emergency, a public health crisis with the pandemic, and probably you could use more money to get more supplies and more infrastructure to get those shots into people's arms. Obviously, the economy is still very fragile. So I think most people would say, if it's not an emergency, that there is a need for more relief. I think there's probably a bipartisan majority who would go for another $1,400 in direct payments, maybe not to as broad a group.
Imagine being the guy who shows up on national television in the middle of a pandemic and economic crisis more dire than any other crisis in our lifetimes, and your position is, do we really need the relief? Is a package really that important? It's almost like, and bear with me here, maybe having a millionaire TV host spouting talking points passed down from their billionaire bosses isn't actually in line with how Americans are living in this country. Consider too that while John Roberts is undercutting the need for relief from his cushy anchor job that I'm sure pays enough to at least put dinner on the table, Americans need relief so badly that the state of Georgia just elected 2 Democratic senators, the first time any Democrats have won statewide in 3 decades, on the promise of delivering relief. And of course they were elected too because Democrats' platform overall is more aligned with what people want. And, oh yeah, people generally don't like fascism, so the GOP really doesn't have much to offer. Now, the excuse John Roberts presents here is parroting the argument made by Republican Senator Rob Portman that Congress just passed a $900 billion package, thereby suggesting that a $1.9 trillion package is unnecessary. Only, here's the thing, the $900 billion package fell short from the start. That's been the entire issue all along. That bill included an almost offensive $600 in stimulus checks as opposed to the $2,000 that Democrats were pushing for. Unemployment benefits were slashed from $600 to $300. It didn't include direct funding for state and local governments, and the list goes on. You don't get to pass a bill that was criticized from the start as inadequate and then turn around and wonder why more relief needs to be passed on top of that inadequate bill. The fact is that if Republicans and their mouthpieces at Fox really wanted to avoid having to pass another multi-trillion-dollar relief package, that might have been something to consider before pretending the virus didn't exist. I mean, seriously, the last 11 months were spent on the right pretending that they were going to defeat the virus through sheer willpower and freedom and liberty and patriotism. Like they could just sing the Star-Spangled Banner and will it into submission. And to the surprise of no one, that didn't work. And so in their desperation to toe the line put forward by Trump, they allowed the virus to explode throughout this country. It didn't have to be this way. Remember, we have the most cases and the most deaths in the world. That is the direct result of our leadership. And so knowing that they made the conscious decision to let the virus spread, they can't feign exasperation at having to dole out money to pay for the consequences of that decision. You broke it, you buy it. And yet instead of having even an ounce of foresight and acknowledging the impending devastating effects of siding with the virus over the science, Republicans decided that playing pretend would be a good re-election strategy. And not only did Trump then lose, but now most of the country is in dire need of relief so that they can pay the rent and put food on the table and keep the heat on. Any way you cut it, this was an unmitigated disaster by the right. And the only thing that could make it worse is what they're doing right now, continuing to downplay the effects as the rest of the country suffers. So good on Chris Wallace for acknowledging reality, which is more than we can say for John Roberts and the rest of the GOP more broadly, who are not only unwilling to take responsibility for the spread of this virus, but now don't want to acknowledge what's needed to help people in the wake of that miscalculation either. And as they continue to traffic in denialism, hopefully it'll open more Americans' eyes to the fact that the right isn't interested in helping people, they're only interested in playing politics. While you're here, please check out my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. I take a deep dive into the top stories of the week, and I also interview major players in the world of politics, like Kamala Harris, Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, Pete Buttigieg, Katie Porter, Al Franken, Cory Booker, Jamie Harrison, Mary Trump, and many more. Again, that's No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, available anywhere you listen to podcasts.